In the misty hollows of the Appalachian Mountains, where the ancient oaks whispered secrets to the wind and the creeks sang lullabies over smooth stones, there lived an old woman named Elara Thorne. She wasn't born in those woods, but she'd claimed them as her own long before the turn of the century, back when the world was still healing from the scars of the Great War. Folks in the nearby town of Willow Creek called her the Witch of Whispering Pines, though no one could say for sure if it was out of fear or respect. Ilara didn't mind the name. It kept the curious at bay and let her live in peace with the forest that had become her kin. Ilara's cabin was a humble affair, pieced together from fallen logs and river rocks, with a thatched roof that leaked during heavy rains but held firm against the winter snows. Vines of wild ivy climbed its walls like loving arms, and the front porch sagged under the weight of hanging herbs, lavender for calm, sage for cleansing, and rosemary for remembrance. She had no electricity, no running water beyond what the spring provided, and her only companions were the creatures of the wild, a family of deer that grazed in her clearing, squirrels that chattered from the branches, and an old barn owl named Hoot who perched on her shoulder like a sentinel. It hadn't always been this way. Ilara was once Eleanor Caldwell, a bright-eyed girl from Boston, raised in the bustle of city streets where horse-drawn carriages gave way to automobiles and the air hummed with the promise of progress. She married young, to a man named Samuel Thorne, a soldier with dreams of homesteading out west, but the war took him before they could pack their bags. 1918. Influenza, they said. But Ilara knew it was the heartbreak of trenches that did him in. Widowed at 22, she fled the city's grief, wandering south until the mountains called her home. That was over 70 years ago. Now, at 95, Ilara's skin was like weathered bark, her hair a cascade of silver threads, and her eyes, sharp as a hawk's, held the stories of a lifetime. She rose with the dawn each day, her joints creaking like old branches in the breeze. Breakfast was simple: porridge from wild oats, sweetened with honey from her beehives, and a cup of nettle tea to chase away the aches. Then she'd tend her garden, a riot of colours hidden behind the cabin, pumpkins swelling like orange moons, tomatoes blushing red, and herbs that could heal or harm depending on the dose. The forest provided everything she needed. She foraged for mushrooms in the damp undergrowth, berries from thorny bushes, and nuts from the hickory trees. In return, she protected it. When loggers from the mill in Willow Creek eyed her woods, she'd appear like a ghost, her voice carrying warnings on the wind. "These trees have souls," she'd say, her gaze piercing through their greed. More often than not, they'd turn tail, muttering about curses and bad luck. But the forest wasn't just sustenance, it was alive with magic, or so Ilara believed. She'd seen things in those woods that no city folk would credit: fairies dancing in moonlit glades, spirits of long-gone Cherokee wandering the trails, and once, a great stag with antlers like a crown, leading her to a hidden spring during a drought. She kept a journal, bound in deerskin, filled with sketches and notes in her spidery hand. "The world forgets," she wrote, "but the forest remembers." One crisp autumn morning, as leaves turned to flames of red and gold, trouble came knocking. It started with a distant rumble, like thunder out of season. Ilara stepped onto her porch, Hoot fluttering to her side. Through the trees she saw flashes of yellow, bulldozers and trucks carving a path toward her sanctuary. The mill had grown bold, a new highway was planned, slicing through the heart of Whispering Pines to connect Willow Creek to the interstate. Word spread quickly in town. At the diner where waitresses poured coffee strong enough to wake the dead, old-timers shook their heads. "That old woman's gonna raise hell," said Jed Harper, the mill foreman. But progress waits for no one. His daughter, young Lila Harper, listened with wide eyes. Lila was 17, with dreams bigger than Willow Creek, college in the city, maybe even New York. But she had a soft spot for the legends of the old woman. As a child, she'd snuck into the woods, leaving baskets of apples at the edge of the clearing, hoping for a glimpse of magic. That night, as stars pricked the velvet sky, Lila couldn't sleep. The forest called to her, a pull she couldn't ignore. Slipping out her window, she hiked the familiar trail, flashlight beam dancing like a will-o'-the-wisp. The air grew thick with the scent of pine and earth, and soon she stood at the cabin's edge. Light flickered from the window, a candle's glow. Ilara was waiting. "Come in, child," she called, her voice like rustling leaves. Lila hesitated, then stepped inside. The cabin was warm, scented with drying herbs and wood smoke. Shelves lined the walls, crammed with jars of preserves, books yellowed with age, and curiosities. Crystals that caught the light, feathers from rare birds, and a collection of river stones etched with runes. "Why are you here?" Ilara asked, pouring tea from a kettle on the wood stove. Lila fidgeted. "The highway? They're going to destroy everything. I thought maybe you could stop them." Ilara chuckled, a sound like dry branches snapping. "Stop progress? That's like holding back the river with your hands, but perhaps we can redirect it." Over the next hours, as the moon climbed high, Ilara shared her stories. She spoke of the forest's history, the Cherokee who once roamed freely, the settlers who carved out lives from the wild, the wars that echoed through the valleys. "This land ain't just dirt and trees," she said. "It's blood and bone, memory and magic." Lila listened, enthralled. For the first time, she saw beyond her small-town confines. "What can I do?" she whispered. Ilara's eyes twinkled. "Learn, then fight." The next day, Lila rallied the town. She organised meetings at the community hall, armed with Ilara's journal, loaned in secret, and tales of the forest's wonders. Environmentalists from the city caught wind, descending with cameras and petitions. Protests swelled, signs reading "Save Whispering Pines," waving in the wind. But the mill pushed back. Jed Harper led the charge, arguing jobs and economy. Tensions rose, culminating in a town hall showdown. As arguments flew, the doors burst open. Ilara stood there, staff in hand, a gnarled branch from an ancient oak. Silence fell like snow. "I've lived in these woods longer than most of you've been alive," she began, her voice steady. "I've seen empires rise and fall, but the forest endures. You think a road will bring prosperity? It'll bring noise and trash, chase away the wildlife, poison the streams. Ask yourselves, what price for progress?" Her words hung heavy. Jed shifted uncomfortably, remembering boyhood hunts in those woods. Whispers spread, stories of Ilara's magic, of storms she'd summoned, of lost souls she'd guided. In the end, compromise won. The highway rerouted, skirting the forest's edge. Ilara's land became a protected preserve, a haven for hikers and dreamers. Years passed. Lila went to college, became an environmental lawyer, but returned often to visit Ilara. The old woman grew frailer, her steps slower, but her spirit unyielding. One winter's eve, as snow blanketed the clearing, Ilara passed peacefully, hooting a mournful dirge. The town buried her under her favourite oak, and legends grew. They said the forest flourished brighter after, as if nourished by her essence. And on quiet nights, if you listened close, you could hear her whisper on the wind. "The world forgets, but the forest remembers."